interview. First of all, your reaction to the death sentences that were handed down against Bashar, Maher, other members of the regime, and Atif Najib. What was your initial reaction when you heard the sentences delivered?
First of all, this is a historical and symbolic trial for the like the majority of the Syrian people. That
Mm,
what felt joy, including me. A
mm,
part of me as a felt joy to chanting, dancing with my people, and that's the impact of the verdict. It's achievable.
mhm.
Then I think there is here maybe a little bit of shortage in preparation to the court, the legal framework, and some policies toward the death sentence. This death sentence is included in the Syrian law, but the majority of the states all around the world and the human rights organization, the international human rights organization, they are against this death sentence. We need this, but confine this death sentence for those targeting only the highest level, which they are involved in crimes against humanity and war crimes, the decision makers, and exclusively in this transitional period.
So I understand what you're saying, that if you want to Syrians who want justice and accountability to be satisfied with the sentencing and the verdict when it comes to the high level members of the regime, that anything less than the death penalty would not provide them with enough closure. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, at all. It will not. That based on, like I can say, tenth of testimonies and interviews with the victims. We
Mhm.
highlight this question many times. So we are aware about that. They will
Right,
be never, and that will cause a revenge if they didn't convince, if the
right.
impact didn't achieve. So we need to address that. In Syria, it's different context. We can highlight the international law at the same
Yeah.
time with to mix it. So we are targeting only those and abandon it from the others.
But what you're saying, which I find interesting, is you believe that this should be confined to the transitional period and applied only to the guilty verdicts against the high levels. Because
Yes,
otherwise, right. And so, because otherwise, what you're saying is A, you would have tens of thousands of people who might be found guilty of having collaborated with the regime, and that's just not feasible. But B, there's also an issue with international organizations who will not cooperate with countries that use the death penalty as a punishment. And Syria does need help, does it not, from some of these outside groups that could help it in
yes, of course.
investigations and tests, in gathering witness testimony, etc.
My concern is not helping or extradite or deliver the victims. In
Mm,
Syria, the MOI, they have the higher level than what is outside,
right.
except Bashar al-Assad and Maher or Ali Mamlouk, few names, but they have thousand and they arrest thousand of criminals with higher rank than what is the European state. So extradite is not my concern. Also supporting is not my concern. Maybe financial support, this will affect little bit, especially
Mhm.
the UN and others. But my concern is the image of the Syria itself. Syria post-Assad. It's concern about the human rights law and concern about that. This is the things. My concern is to avoid a criticism from the International Human Rights Organization
Sure.
from and give the image for this procedure and for the Syria and to protect the procedure because we are paving the way for further trial. And there is also an expert who's international expert, international in human rights law. They are monitoring what's going on
Yeah.
in Syria, and they will write a research paper that will, for sure will include this criticism in academic, in journalists, in human rights organization. That is my concern.
So does Syria have, well, it has not passed so far because it's such a new government. The legislation required to, across the board and in a uniform fashion, apply legislation to try former members of the regime for these crimes. Has it not? I mean, is that missing? Is that piece missing? Because we've heard among the criticism I've heard, and we've discussed this before outside of this interview, is that that is the missing piece. Do you agree?
No, I disagree actually, and maybe that came from who they don't have experience in international law or or such things. Syria can move ahead, and it should move ahead, and it shouldn't wait until this established law issued by the parliament. Maybe it will take 1 year more or 1.5 years. That's the ideal. Okay, I agree with we need a law who like contain those definition crimes against humanity and war crimes, including those in that's the ideal. But what we can do in those 2 years or 2.5 years, keep waiting. This is the difficulty. Uh, that I think we can start. We can merge the international law in domestic law and I highlight that in one research paper, how we can do that, how we can use the custom law, and we can move ahead.
Okay.
Uh, and we can do that for sure. We don't want to wait. It's better, but we don't have time because there is a population pressure against the authority. It's coming this pressure, political pressure from the people, from the victim. Why we have a trial? There is no pressure from international community at all. I am close from many states.
Hmm.
Uh, and I'm aware about that. And there is no pressure from the UN. We are partner with many UN bodies. So
Hmm.
from where is pressure coming and why the authority is moving? It's coming from the people. It's coming from the anger that you are doing nothings. And the court actually is the hard tool of the transitional justice.
So, do you think that these verdicts and sentences will be enough to satisfy Syrians who have, alongside these demands, many other frustrations, mainly economic frustrations? I hear from so many of them that they don't believe that the economy or the banking system or the financial system is getting back on track quickly enough. They're having trouble paying their bills and keeping up with the cost of living. Will this be enough, do you think, to assuage people?
Yeah, it will. It's sort of enough because if we put the priority of the victims, held the criminal accountable is the first one ever. The second may become the economic reformation and and move ahead. And those sometimes who complain the economic, sometimes they are not victims. So the victims, the real victims, they want to see criminal behind bars and
So what you're saying is this is enough to satisfy Syrians by and large for now, in the sense
yes,
that they feel like they're getting justice and accountability, and that other frustrations that they have, like the economy, like unemployment, like other issues that they have in their daily lives, that those right now you believe are secondary to
yes.
the need for justice and accountability?
Yes, they can be a little bit more patient, but they cannot be patient if they saw criminal or shabiha is moving or being hired in a position in a government. So you notice a huge criticism to the government while they are doing
Mhm.
a settlement with Mohammed Hamsho, for example.
Yes.
Um, if we compare this criticism and attacks against the authority with the economic file, you can easily concluded that the main criticism is while they make settlement with this alleged criminal.
For people who don't know, this Mohammed Hamsho is one of the men who profited from the war by stripping bombed out
And the
homes of
partner of Maher al-Assad, he's a partner,
exact
the main partner
and
of
made
Maher al-Assad.
billions off the suffering of Syrians. And this current government is saying if you pay us a fine or if you pay back some of the money, we will not prosecute you.
What is the details here is the key, not only with Muhammad Hamsho, but with any
Right.
criminal. It's in the principle, it's okay. You can do that. You can do that with the mafia, with the MAF or whoever the leader, uh, except like some who's like top ranking or involved in crimes
Mm.
against humanity, some sort and that depend on the deal itself. So
Yeah.
so the human rights organization, they can monitor the details. Also the journalists, also the Syrian people, the main
Mhm.
important, so that we can evaluate and criticize, but we know nothing actually.
Now, regarding the transparency, I think people are also eagerly awaiting the explanation and the rationale behind the verdict and the sentencing of someone like Atif Najib. I understand it will be several hundred pages of legal reasoning. Is this something we
Yeah.
can expect soon?
That's what we call for, actually. They should
Mhm.
publish the verdict so that we can evaluate how much the legalities, the solidarity of the verdict, how it's being built, review the evidence. There is a civil, there is like a defense. Is the defense is qualified? All of that. It's about 400 pages. The
Mhm.
verdict itself. We are calling this to be public, and they promised that they will publish it. And I think the court is all the procedure, the sessions, everything is it's move fast and swift. And I don't think Syria was ready for such to deal with such complex crime. We
Mhm.
inherited a devastated institution,
Mhm.
and we are lack of an expert in such a trial and in such a cases on the individual level and on the institutional level. So it's worth to have time, but because of the political pressure from the people, it move faster than what I was expected.
Mhm. And lastly, there are concerns that the sectarian tensions that erupted in terrible violence, whether it was Sueda, whether it was Latakia, there were some instances in Aleppo as well, that was a sign that Syria is not completely moving past its sectarian issues that emerged during the war, and that therefore the situation is very fragile, that the current government is not entirely in control of all of its forces and its allies when it comes to violence like we saw in Sweden.
What is
Do you think we should be worried about that?
I think what is if I have one advice to the authority in Syria is the inclusion. And that's the first report ever we highlight after only 2 months of Assad fall. And that's what is the literature. This is my specialty, my PhD about transitional justice, international law in UK, and that what is all the experience taught us. The updated literature, they said in order to move ahead you need to include the community. In Syria we don't have parties, Hala. So
Mhm.
what is the alternative here is the sectarian, the sect. Alternative is the tribe. So you need to include those, because those here, it's a political representation, representative. They are not like they are not representing as a sect or as a religion. But this is the only way to include the Druze. We need to include Durzi, and to include the Alawite, we need to include Alawi, because at this stage, then when we have parties, things is different. But this
And
is
they're
the only
not
way.
being included now. They're not being included now.
I think they are included partially, or sometimes like in not genuinely or in a real way. Including or inclusion is not like to have a minister. No, Christian minister or Durzi. There are, but it's not sufficient. Inclusion, they should be from the ground until
Yeah,
the top. That's mean in the local level,
sure.
in the dynamic on the police department, in the province, in all of the government hierarchy. That will prevent the violence, and this is the localization,
And
which
is this,
still
I understand your point, but I suppose what you're saying is that this is not happening. Do
it's
the
not happening. It's not
do the
happening.
authorities understand that this needs to be done, and are there plans to do this, to increase representation, diversity at the local level and at all levels of authority?
That's what we are calling for, and that's what we are advocating for. In order
Mhm.
to breaking this gap, we need to have this actually delegation for and to trust in our community.
And what would happen if this does not take place, in your opinion? What are some of the risks?
I'm afraid that breaking the sect fragile in Syria then will take time to heal, and it might not be. So, in order to deal with that, we need a compromisation. We need also a negotiation, a real one, and that will be based on the local level and based on like giving authority and to the community itself to control
Mhm.
especially their minor issue. I think this is their right to have it, and they will feel that they are part from this state and part from the government. There is no
True.
other. There is no other alternative because we don't have party. If we have
Yeah.
party, they have represent even the parliament. They are not. They are representing no one because those are being chosen. So what is
Yeah.
the alternative is the sect here in Syria.
Does the
At this
president understand this, do you think?
I hope so. I don't know. I requested meeting several times with the president. I didn't get it. But like this is what we published, the first report, how the political process in Syria should be
Mm.
to preserve the right of the Syrian community.
Right.
That is the title of the report. We publish it after only few months of Assad fall.